This will surely be an interesting video. Not as interesting as gauntlets or greatsword in my humble opinion, but because this weapon analysis, we're covering lance. The weapon that is most generally hated by a majority of players, and by a majority of players I mean golds. I never bothered with the weapon in my 3 years of playing the game. Not a lot anyways, but I used to hate it when I started playing the game. I wasn't gold level for that long though, so I quickly overcame that problem, and went on to hate other weapons and such. Lance as a weapon I think is creative. Spear is just spear, sword is just sword, but lance, it's actually a rocket lance. Although I'm referring to it as lance for convenience. Even though it's unique, people don't like it, for a whole number of reasons. Lance's attacks are questionable. It's difficult to say whether some attacks are good or not, so let's talk about them. Lance Neutralite is a couple of simple jabs forward. It's nothing too special and it can combo with some other moves, somewhat. I wouldn't go for true combos with it as they're difficult to do. Sidelight is probably Lance's best grounded light attack, mainly for its setup into other moves. Sidelight Nair is a fairly popular one along with Sidelight Dare, and I'm pretty sure Sidelight Recovery isn't true anymore, but it is one frame, so I can see why people would go for it. It's an overall good move, although one problem I have with Sidelight is just how difficult it can be to hit sometimes. When trying to hit with Sidelight, I feel like I need to play very carefully and passively, which unfortunately isn't what I'm about. That or I just need to learn how to hit it better. Downlight is not a very good move if I'm being honest. I think it's fine to use for follow-ups to other moves, but it doesn't really go true with anything unless it's super specific, so I wouldn't suggest using it a whole lot. Lance's aerial moves are where it's at, and mainly why golds hate it. Nair is a pretty good juggling tool, as long as you can keep your enemies in the air. It can be a bit difficult to hit, but your enemy will be throwing their monitor out the window, or their TV, or their Switch, or their phone. I think I covered all of them there. Anyways, good juggling tool people tend to dodge up to attack you from above. Side air is arguably one of its best moves next to dare. It's the attack you'll be using most because it's a good approach tool. Not just that, but it's also a great move to kill with. Although I personally think dare is a much better move than Sair, for a couple of different reasons. A good reason would be the amount of true combos you can get it with dare. Sidelight dare, dare to neutralight, dare downlight, dare sidelight, dare Sair even. It's kinda nuts how good dare is. I can't imagine what the weapon would be like if dare wasn't as good as it is. Not just that, but dare also sends downwards, at a good force too, which is why I think it's better than Sair. No need of nerfs in my opinion, just a really fun move to use. Lance recovery is one of the best recovery moves in the game. Not balance wise, that'd likely be, I don't know, hammer, spear, axe, you tell me. Lance's recovery can go super high, mainly because the longer you hold it down, the higher you go. It's simple knowledge. Although sometimes it might not be worth it to do this because if you're trying to get back to stage and there's some dude waiting up there for you, he can easily counter your recovery, foiling your whole plan. So sometimes you might just need to press it. Good recovery, but not the greatest attack-wise. Ground Pound has a great amount of force, like it feels powerful to hit this move. I don't think it's by any means as good as some other Ground Pounds, but it can prove to be pretty good. Every Ground Pound can be if you use them right. Now, what are the reasons people like Lance? There honestly aren't a lot. Of course there's a reason to like each different Lance legend, but I'm talking about the weapon itself. Lower elo players might like using it because it's simple to use. Sair and Dare are very good attacks, and reading other players is not that hard with the weapon. People tend to jump against Lance, and you can land really easy combos. Not brainless easy, but rather easy. That's kind of why it's a fairly popular weapon in lower elos. Being completely honest, I can't think of any other reasons people like the weapon. It's a touchy subject. Now, why do people dislike Lance? Of course, same reason that people like it, it's easy to play. Lower elo players for the most part have a tough time fighting it, for a whole number of reasons. Lance's combos are also very limited, it feels like. I think there's a crazy amount of things you can do with Lance, although a majority of what you're doing with the weapon will revolve around Sidelight, Sair, and Dare. None of its other moves are exactly good enough to be used as consistently, unlike some other weapons, which sort of begins to segue into how good the weapon is, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, I want to try to give you some tips on the weapon. You know, the weapon I have the least playtime on with very little experience. Yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Tip 1. Sidelight. Sidelight's going to be your bread and butter for combos. Seriously. Sair and Dare may be good moves alone, but you can pull off some seriously nasty stuff starting off with Sidelight. Of course it has some true combos and a little bit of reads and you're good to go, no matter what you use. Tip number 2. Don't underestimate its recovery options. Lance is a very good weapon recovery-wise. Being the best recovery height-wise along with a Sair that moves you along with it, and assuming you have at least 1 or 2 jumps, you could travel across the world with all those recovery options. Try not to be predictable with it. If you try recovering close to stage, you'll likely get punished. Leave your jumps and dodges to help yourself avoid edge guarding. Adding on to that is tip number 3, exhausted Lance recovery. This is just sort of a tip in general since every weapon in the game has an exhausted recovery, but Lance's feels much stronger in a strange way. You can only do it if you have jumps though, so you could use it to throw off an opponent and finish off a kill, or adding on to tip 2, use it as a recovery option. Tip number 4 is help against fighting Lance, but try to avoid being side to side with it. Remember, Sair and Dare are some of its best moves, and the enemy will likely be trying to sidelight you. Try to stay above Lance, as its only 2 options to attack above it are Recovery, which, let's be honest, won't work out too well, and Nair, which is its only good attack for catching opponents above you. Also, try not to jump out of grounded attacks. Players will likely try to Sair or Dare. Try to change up your dodges and use Lance's blind spots as an advantage. Tier list wise, out of S, A, and B, I want to put Lance in high B tier. It's just not that good of a weapon if I'm being honest. Its combos are fairly simple and revolve around only a few of its moves, and if you know how your opponent is playing, you can easily counter it. It's strange that I say Lance isn't that good, considering I don't win against the weapon a lot, but that's on me. Obviously, I'm screwing something up there. What that thing is, beats me. I'd have to watch my replays, which obviously isn't happening. Overall though, I think it's agreed on by a majority that the weapon just isn't fun. Players have been saying it's in need of a rework for years now. Whether we get that rework is completely unknown by me, although I feel like a rework is in the works. Maybe not for Lance, but maybe for some other weapons. Although most weapons in the game are fine with their attacks, some just need buffs or nerfs, but Lance might be too far to repair. The devs have sort of just agreed on that too, since we only have 7 Lance Legends. For a base game weapon, that's absolutely horrible. Both Scythe and Gauntlet, fairly new weapons to the game at the time, have more legends than Lance, which is just super unfortunate to see. I know I don't play Lance, but you kinda have to feel bad. Of course, whether a weapon is fun is completely up to you. I might keep experimenting with Lance as I was surprisingly having fun with it when I was recording footage. I doubt it will become a regular thing, but we'll see. So, we'll see if another Lance Legend is around the corner. Maybe Great Sword or Cannon, although I think that spot is assigned to Spear. Either way, I thank you for watching the third weapon analysis, and I will see you guys next week as usual. Of course, keep on brawling.